Marcus stood in the doorway of my office wearing khakis and a grin that said he'd never had to earn anything in his life. "This is Dylan," Stephen said, hand on the kid's shoulder like he was presenting a trophy. "He's going to be taking over operations. Thought you two should meet." Dylan extended his hand. Firm grip. Practiced. The kind they teach you in business school right after how to network at cocktail parties. "Excited to learn from you," he said. I didn't take his hand right away. Just looked at him. 24, maybe 25. Wearing a Patagonia vest over a button-down. Allbirds. The uniform of someone whose biggest risk in life was choosing the wrong startup to join. Then I looked at Stephen, my business partner of 9 years. The man who'd called me at 2 a.m. when his father died. Who'd stood next to me when we signed our first office lease with money we didn't have. "When did you decide this?" I asked. Stephen's smile tightened. "We've been talking about bringing in fresh energy. Dylan just finished his MBA. Top of his class. And he's your son. That's not relevant." I finally shook Dylan's hand. Briefly. Then let go. "I'll need to see the paperwork," I said. Stephen blinked. "What paperwork?" "The partnership amendment. The one that transfers my operational authority to Dylan." The room went quiet. Dylan looked at his father. Stephen looked at me. "We don't need paperwork for this," Stephen said carefully. "It's an internal restructure. Dylan reports to me. You'll focus on client relationships." I smiled. Small. The kind of smile you give someone right before they realize they've made a terrible mistake. "I'll be in my office," I said. "Dylan, good luck." I walked out. Behind me, I heard Dylan whisper, "Is she always like that?" I didn't hear Stephen's answer. Didn't need to. Apex Consulting Group started in a coffee shop in 2016. 2 people. Stephen and me. He had the MBA and the business plan. I had the client list and the operational experience. We split it 50-50ths. Equal partners. Equal say. Equal risk. We called ourselves consultants, but really we were fixers. Companies hired us when their operations were broken, and they didn't know why. I'd go in, spend 3 weeks mapping their workflows, and come out with a plan. Stephen would sell it, I'd implement it, we'd split the fee. It worked because we trusted each other. By year 2, we had 8 employees and an office in a building that didn't smell like old carpet. By year 4, we were clearing 7 figures annually. By year 6, we had 19 consultants and contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies. I built every process, hired every senior consultant, managed every client crisis at 11 p.m. when deadlines were burning, and Stephen was at a networking dinner. He brought in the business. I made sure we could deliver it. Equal partners. Until Dylan graduated. Stephen started talking about succession planning and next-generation leadership. Started asking me if I'd ever thought about scaling back. Taking more time off. Mentoring younger talent. I thought he was worried about burnout. Turns out he was just warming me up. 3 months ago, Dylan started showing up to the office. Sitting in on client meetings. Asking questions that showed he'd read the executive summary, but not the actual report. Stephen called it exposure. I called it what it was. A trial run. Then, 2 weeks ago, Stephen pulled me aside after a board meeting. "Dylan's ready for more responsibility," he said. "Doing what?" "Operations. Strategy. The things you've been handling." "I'm still handling them." "Right, but you've been carrying a lot. We should distribute the load." I looked at him for a long moment. "You want to give my job to your son. I want to bring him into leadership. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm standing." He didn't argue. Just said we'd talk more later. We didn't talk more later. He just showed up with Dylan this morning and announced it like it was already done. But here's what Stephen forgot. When we formed Apex in 2016, we didn't just shake hands and file an LLC. We drafted a partnership agreement. 37 pages. Every scenario covered. Dispute resolution. Equity splits. Exit clauses. And on page 23, section 11.4, there was a dissolution clause. Either partner may dissolve the partnership with written notice if the other partner materially breaches the operating agreement, including but not limited to unilateral changes to authority, role modifications without mutual consent, or introduction of family members into leadership roles without written approval. I'd insisted on that last part. Stephen thought I was being paranoid. "Why would I ever hire my family?" He'd laughed. I signed it anyway. So did he. I kept a copy in my office safe. Another with my attorney. Another in a fireproof box at home next to my passport. Just in case Stephen ever forgot we were equals. I sat in my office for exactly 12 minutes after Dylan and Stephen left. Didn't touch my computer. Didn't check email. Just sat. Then I opened my desk drawer, pulled out the partnership agreement, and flipped to page 23. Section 11.4 stared back at me like a loaded weapon I'd been storing for years. I read it 3 times. Made sure the language was as clear as I remembered. It was. Then I pulled out my phone and called my attorney. Laura Kim. Corporate law. Sharp as a scalpel. He did what? Laura said when I finished explaining. Gave my role to his son. No discussion. No amendment. Just walked him into my office like it was already decided. Did you agree to this in writing? No. Did Stephen even ask? No. I heard her keyboard clicking. Fast, focused. Okay. Section 11.4 is crystal clear. Introduction of a family member into a leadership role without written approval from both partners is a material breach. You have grounds to dissolve. Immediately? Immediately. I'll draft the dissolution notice. How fast do you want this? I looked at the clock. 10:47 a.m. Before lunch. Done.
Hey, before we continue, 97% of people never subscribe. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button and like the video. It really helps us bring you more stories like this. Thanks. Laura's notice hit Stephen's email at 11:52 a.m. Certified digital delivery. Timestamped. Legally binding. The subject line. Formal notice of partnership dissolution. Apex Consulting Group. I wasn't CC'd. Didn't need to be. I already knew what it said. By 12:14 p.m., Stephen was standing in my office doorway. What the hell is this? He was holding his phone like it had just bitten him. It's a dissolution notice. You can't dissolve the partnership. Section 11.4 says I can. You brought Dylan into a leadership role without my written consent. That's a material breach. He's not in a leadership role. He reports to me. You gave him my operational authority. That's leadership. Stephen's face went red. This is insane. We're partners. We talk about things. You didn't talk. You announced. There's a difference. He stepped into my office. Closed the door. Okay, look. Maybe I moved too fast. We can adjust Dylan's role. Make it more advisory. Too late. The breach occurred the moment you made the unilateral change. The dissolution is already in effect. What does that even mean? I leaned back in my chair. Calm. Deliberate. It means we have 30 days to wind down the partnership per the operating agreement. All client contracts get assigned to one party or the other. All assets get divided 50/50ths. All employees choose which entity they want to work for going forward. You're blowing up 9 years over Dylan? I'm enforcing the agreement you signed. The one that says we're equal partners. The one that says you can't make major decisions without me. Stephen stared at me. I watched the realization settle in. The understanding that this wasn't a negotiation. It was already done. Laura's handling the paperwork, I said. You'll need your own attorney. I'd recommend you call them today. He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked out. He didn't slam the door. That would have required more control than he had. By 1:30 p.m., the office was buzzing. Stephen had called an emergency meeting with our senior consultants. 6 people crammed into the conference room. I didn't attend. I was on the phone with our 3 biggest clients. Just wanted to give you a heads up, I said to each of them. Apex is going through a partnership restructure. I'll be transitioning to a new entity, and I wanted to know if you'd like your contract to move with me or stay with Stephen. All 3 answered the same way. You're the one who actually does the work. We'll go wherever you go. By 3 p.m., I had signed letters of intent from clients representing $2.4 million in annual revenue. 62% of Apex's total book. By 4:15 p.m., 5 of our senior consultants came to my office. We heard about the dissolution, said Marcus, our lead ops consultant. Not Dylan. The other Marcus. The one who actually knew what he was doing. News travels, I said. Where are you going? Starting a new firm. Same work, different name. Can we come? I looked at all 5 of them. People I'd hired. Trained. Promoted. I can't poach employees during a dissolution. But if you want to resign from Apex and apply to work for me after the 30-day period, I can't stop you. Marcus smiled. When should we send our applications? Day 31. They all nodded and left. By 5 p.m., Dylan came to my office. Alone. He looked smaller without his father behind him. I didn't know this would happen, he said. I know. My dad said this was all planned out, that you were on board. I wasn't. He shifted his weight. Uncomfortable. What do I do now? I almost felt bad for him. Almost. You learn what it actually takes to run a consulting firm. You'll have your father to teach you, but all the clients are leaving. Not all of them. Maybe 38% will stay. That's still a business. That's not what my dad built. No, I said. It's what we built. And now we're unbuilding it. He left without another word. The asset division took exactly 18 days. Laura and Steven's attorney, a man named Greg who billed like he was defending a murder case, went back and forth on every detail. Office furniture, client lists, intellectual property, the coffee maker. But the math was simple. Partnership agreement said 50-50 split of all assets. Apex had $840,000 in the bank. I got $420,000. We had $1.2 million in accounts receivable. I got $600,000 worth of invoices. We had 19 employees. I got commitments from 12 of them to join my new firm starting day 31. Steven kept the Apex name, the office, the website. Dylan. I kept the clients, the consultants, the reputation. On day 23, Steven sent me an email. Subject: Can we talk? Body: This doesn't have to end like this. We can restructure. Dylan can step back. You can come back as an equal partner. Let's not destroy what we built. I read it twice. Then I replied, We already destroyed it. You did that when you gave my job to your son. The paperwork is just catching up.
He didn't respond.
On day 29, the final dissolution documents were signed. Apex Consulting Group was officially split. Steven kept the old entity. I formed a new one. Meridian Strategy Group. Same work. New name. Better partnership terms. This time, the operating agreement had a clause that said, No family members in leadership roles. Ever. Laura smiled when she drafted it. Learning from experience? Something like that. The wire transfer from the asset split hit my account on day 30. $420,000 in cash. $600,000 in receivables that would clear over the next 60 days. I didn't celebrate. Just moved the money into the business account for Meridian and started working. By day 35, I'd signed 8 clients. 7 from Apex, 1 new. By day 40, I had 12 employees on payroll. All people who'd worked with me before. By day 60, Meridian had $3.1 million in signed contracts and a waiting list. Apex? I heard through the industry grapevine that they were struggling. Dylan had tried to lead a client engagement and delivered a report with formatting errors and missing data. The client fired them. Steven was picking up the pieces. Personally. At 62 years old. I didn't gloat. Didn't post about it on LinkedIn. Just kept working. 3 months after the dissolution, I ran into Steven at an industry conference. He was at the bar. Alone. Drinking something brown and expensive. He saw me. Didn't look away. Didn't smile. I walked over. Ordered a soda water. We stood there in silence for a full minute. Finally, he spoke. You took everything. I took my half. You kept yours. My half doesn't work without you. Then you should have thought about that before you gave my job to Dylan. He stared into his drink. I thought he was ready. He wasn't. You knew that. You just wanted it to be true. Steven nodded slowly. Took a sip. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion. The regret. The realization that 9 years of partnership could evaporate in 24 hours because of one bad decision. I know, I said. Then I left him at the bar. You build something with someone, you trust them. You believe that the partnership means something. That equal means equal. But trust without documentation is just hope. And hope doesn't hold up when someone decides their son deserves your job. Stephen thought he could make a unilateral decision because he'd gotten comfortable. Because 9 years of working together made him forget that I wasn't an employee. I was a partner. And partners have rights. He gave my job to his son. I dissolved the partnership. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. Out of respect for the agreement we signed. The one that said we were equals. The one that said family couldn't override partnership without consent. Some people think partnerships are about trust. They're not. They're about contracts. And when someone breaks yours, you don't negotiate. You enforce.